Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, endless ocean. The waves stretch beyond the horizon, meeting the sky in a distant blur. In your hands, you hold a bottle, a fragile glass vessel. Inside, a message. Words that only you know, secrets only you have written. You take a deep breath and let it go. The bottle vanishes into the tide, swallowed by the sea. You have no idea where it will go. Maybe it will drift for days, maybe for decades. Maybe it will sink to the ocean floor, lost forever. Or maybe, just maybe one day, someone will find it. A stranger, a different life, a different world. But why do we do this? Why do we send messages with no destination, no guarantee of being read? This is not just about bottles and letters. This is about something deeper, about longing, about hope, about what it means to be human. The psychology, why we speak into the void. At its core, a message in a bottle is an act of vulnerability, a confession to the universe, a whisper to the unknown. People don't send these messages when life is predictable, when everything feels certain. No. These letters are born in moments of longing, of desperation, of wonder. They come from those who feel unseen, unheard, or untethered from the world around them. Some messages are written by lost sailors, their only hope of survival floating upon the waves. Others are love letters, unsent apologies, fragments of poetry, or whispers of dreams too fragile to say out loud. A message in a bottle is, in many ways, an emotional time capsule. It captures a moment of raw humanity, one that might otherwise fade. The act of writing itself is deeply psychological. It forces us to slow down, to put our feelings into words, to give structure to the chaos inside us. This is why writing is often used as therapy. It externalizes what weighs on our minds, making it feel lighter, more manageable. But what makes a message in a bottle different from a diary entry, a text, or a letter to a friend? It's the element of surrender. When you write a message and throw it into the sea, you are letting go. You have no control over who, if anyone, will ever read it. You don't know where it will travel, what forces will carry it, or how long it will survive. And yet, you still send it. Why? Because deep down, we crave connection, not just with those around us, but with something larger than ourselves, with the unknown, with the future, with fate or destiny, or the simple possibility that somewhere, someone might hear us. It's a paradox of human nature. We fear uncertainty, and yet we are drawn to it. There's something freeing about the idea that our words might find a stranger on some distant shore, years or decades from now. A person we will never meet, living a life we will never know. And in that moment, across time and space, our thoughts, our existence, become real to them. Maybe that's why we send messages into the void, not because we expect an answer, but because sometimes just knowing that our words are out there, floating, waiting, drifting toward an unknown fate, is enough. But there's something even deeper here, something almost existential. To send a message in a bottle is to embrace uncertainty. It is an act of faith, but also an act of defiance. It is faith because it requires belief in the unseen, that somewhere, somehow, a stranger might read your words, that your thoughts, your emotions, your existence might reach beyond yourself. But it is also defiance. It is a quiet rebellion against the idea that we are insignificant, that our words will vanish into nothingness. It is a refusal to accept that our presence in the world is fleeting and unnoticed. It says, I exist, I was here, and even if no one ever reads this, my words have touched the world. Philosophers have long debated the nature of meaning. Does life have inherent purpose, or do we create our own? A message in a bottle embodies this very question. It is, in a way, absurd, like shouting into the void, hoping for an echo. There's no logic to it, no guaranteed outcome, and yet it holds meaning simply because we give it meaning. This mirrors the larger existential question. What is the purpose of anything if nothing is guaranteed? Some would argue that life itself is like a message in a bottle, each of us existing for a brief moment, sending our actions, our words, our love into the world, not knowing who, if anyone, will receive them. And yet, we do it anyway. Because even the possibility of connection, of being understood, of leaving something behind, is enough. The beauty of randomness and fate. And then, there's the mystery. The unpredictability of a message in a bottle is what makes it so powerful. Unlike a letter sent through the mail with a clear recipient, these messages surrender to fate. They are carried by tides, swept by storms, hidden beneath waves, and revealed by time. The ocean chooses their journey, and history is full of stories where a single bottle changed a life. A letter written by a soldier in 1914, thrown into the sea before battle, washes up in 1999. The words of a man lost to time finally read, his story remembered. A bottle sent by a child in one country is found by another child across the world, forging an impossible friendship across borders and cultures. A love letter lost to the waves returns years later, found at exactly the right moment, right when someone needs to hear those words the most. These stories remind us that life itself is full of invisible currents, that sometimes what we send out into the world, whether words, actions, or emotions, returns to us in ways we never expected. It makes us wonder, how much of our own lives are shaped by forces we can't see? How many small choices, seemingly insignificant in the moment, ripple outward in ways we'll never fully understand? And maybe that's the greatest lesson of all. A message in a bottle isn't just about who finds it. It's about the act itself. The willingness to put something into the world, not knowing where it will go, but trusting that it matters. Because in the end, isn't that what we're all doing? Sending out pieces of ourselves, our words, our love, our stories, into the vast, unpredictable sea of existence, hoping that somehow, somewhere, they will reach the right person at the right time. Maybe that's the real reason we throw bottles into the ocean, not to be found, but simply to know that, for a moment, we let go. Today, we send messages across the world in seconds. A text, an email, a social media post, words traveling invisibly through satellites and cables, reaching their destination almost before we've finished typing. Our thoughts are delivered instantly, effortlessly, at the tap of a screen. But does that make them more meaningful? We live in an age of hypercommunication, where connection has never been easier, and yet, paradoxically, we often feel more disconnected than ever. We can send thousands of words in a day, but how many do we truly mean? How many do we even remember a week later? We type without thinking. We respond out of obligation. We skim, we scroll, we glance, but we rarely sit with words the way we once did. In an era of endless notifications, of fleeting messages that disappear as soon as they arrive, have we lost something? A message in a bottle is different. It carries something digital words struggle to capture: mystery, anticipation, and the patience of time. A letter sealed in glass is not just communication. It is a gesture, a ritual, a small act of surrender to the unknown. It is writing without expectation, sending without certainty, speaking into the void, and trusting the waves to carry your words to wherever they are meant to go. Compare that to a text message. When we send a text, we expect an answer immediately. We watch for the read notification. We wait for the typing bubbles. We feel a flicker of impatience when minutes pass without a response. Silence makes us uncomfortable. But a message in a bottle has no urgency. It is a conversation without time, without demands. It does not ask for an immediate reply. It does not even ask to be found. It simply exists, drifting through the world, waiting for the right person, the right moment, the right tide to bring it ashore. It might be found tomorrow, or in 10 years, or never at all. And yet somehow, that uncertainty makes it more profound. The art of waiting in a world that never stops. We live in a world where waiting has become a lost art. Everything is instant: news, entertainment, conversations. We refresh feeds, we check notifications, we skim through endless updates, always consuming, always moving, rarely pausing. The idea of waiting for something, truly waiting, with no control over when or if it will come, feels almost unnatural. But messages in bottles resist that. They embrace patience. They embrace the unknown. They remind us that not everything is meant to be immediate. Not everything is meant to be answered right away. Some words are meant to drift, to be lost, to be found again. Maybe that's why, even today, even in an age where we can communicate with anyone, anywhere, in the blink of an eye, people still send messages into the sea. Because not all words are meant to be acknowledged right away. Some are meant to travel. Some are meant to be read by the right person, at the right time, even if that time is decades from now. Because some messages are not about reaching someone else. They're about leaving something behind. A reminder that once upon a time, we were here, that we lived, that we wondered, that we reached out, not knowing if anyone would ever reach back, but believing that, in some way, we still mattered. And maybe that's the beauty of a message in a bottle. It is not just a letter. It is a piece of ourselves, surrendered to fate. A reminder that, even in an age where everything moves too fast, there are still some things worth waiting for. If you had one chance, just one, to send a message into the unknown, what would you say? Would it be a secret you've never dared to share? A confession meant for no one, and yet, for everyone? Would it be a story, your story, preserved in ink, carried by the tides, waiting for someone somewhere to read it and understand? Would it be a plea for help, a love letter never sent, an apology too late to be spoken? Or would it be something simpler, a joke, a wish, a fragment of poetry, a single word left open to interpretation? Or maybe it wouldn't be words at all. Maybe it would be a sketch, a fingerprint, a simple, "I was here." Because at the core of it all, isn't that what we truly long for? To be heard, to be remembered, to know that, for even a fleeting moment, we mattered. There's something deeply human about the desire to leave something behind. A message in a bottle is more than just ink on paper. It is a time capsule, a whisper to the future, a declaration that we existed, that we felt, that we reached out, even if we never knew who, if anyone, would reach back. Perhaps that's why we are drawn to the idea, even in an age of endless communication. Because deep down, we understand that some messages aren't meant for instant replies. Some words are meant to drift, to travel, to wait for the right moment, the right person, the right hands to open them. So, if you had one message to send, one message to float beyond your reach, what would it be? Would it be for someone else? Or would it be for yourself? And maybe that's the real question. Because in the end, a message in a bottle is not just about being found. It is about the act of writing it, of letting go, of believing that somewhere, someday, someone might understand. And maybe that's enough.